Hi, I'm Christopher Jones, and I'd like to welcome you to the first module of our presentation on building an online course. This is Module 1, Introduction to Online Learning. In this lesson, we'll talk about how online learning is different from traditional learning, and how you need to make sure that both you and your students are taking advantage of the opportunities it offers. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about the particular challenges and benefits of online learning, and what you need to be aware of to provide a good learning experience for your students. Alright, so let's jump right into the differences between traditional and online education. You may remember being a student in a traditional school setting. You would have had a set schedule that you followed every school day from the moment you woke up until the bus dropped you off in the afternoon. You had homework that not only your teachers, but your parents expected you to finish every night. And if you didn't study and didn't hand in your assignments, there were penalties for slacking off. If the lessons weren't exciting enough to keep your attention, the threat of bad grades and being grounded made sure that you got the work done. And despite yourself, you were taught something every day. This is learning in a traditional school paradigm. A lot of the hard work is done for you in terms of getting there and being required to meet certain predetermined goals and objectives. When you got to college, you probably had a bit of a shock the first time you realized no one was going to threaten you with detention if you didn't show up for classes. You might have been sitting in a lecture hall with 200 other students, but you still had a schedule you were expected to keep, and teachers and TAs were right on hand to give you information, assignments, and answer your questions. Your smaller classes were probably labs where you got one-on-one attention and a chance to do hands-on work to enhance your skills, and all the basic infrastructure from craft paper to test tubes was right there. But you had to show up during lab hours, and if you had two courses that you really wanted to take but they were in the same time slot, you had to choose between one or the other. So maybe you never did get to learn about early 20th century tone poems, even though you really wanted to. College learning is more about student choices. You have to be a lot more responsible for getting things done and making choices about what is important when to help you achieve your own goals. Now that brings us to online education, a way of learning that offers a different educational paradigm. Online education is still in its early development, but already it's clear that it works much differently than traditional ways of learning. It is education that is definitely student and learner driven. Students learning online, unless it's through a traditional university, are doing so only because they want to, for whatever reason, and there's no one to hold them accountable for meeting deadlines, doing the work, or seeing any benefit. This is a pretty new way of obtaining information and interacting with course materials. There are some amazing pros, but also a few challenges. Let's take a look at what online education offers. It would be hard to overstate the popularity of online education. Over 6.2 million students are enrolled in online classes as of 2014, and education sites like Coursera, Lynda.com, Udemy, and the Khan Academy are enrolling more students each year. It's also amazing what kinds of classes you can find online. From single videos to entire physics courses from MIT, information is available when students need it, wherever they are. But perhaps the most revolutionary thing about online education is how accessible it is to almost anyone, almost everywhere. All you need is an internet connection and a computer or even a smartphone to access information about pretty much anything. Your courses can always be there when your students are ready to learn, whether it's on their lunch breaks at work or during a few spare moments on a vacation. They can work around their existing schedules and at their own pace, making this education accessible to a wider array of people than traditional education with a location and a timetable ever could be. I'm sure you've been hearing about the incredibly high cost of a college education. Online education is usually much more affordable than a brick and mortar classroom, and that means it's possible to get more training without going into the kind of debt many college students are facing today. Online courses offer a lot of content options for students, from downloadable files to podcasts and video. And that content can be updated pretty much instantly so that students always have the latest information. Traditional classes not only depend heavily on expensive textbooks, but it literally takes years, sometimes decades, for textbooks to come out with a new edition. And by then, even that content might be out of date. And finally, online courses are almost infinitely customizable. In a traditional college major, you have to take classes that don't interest you or that have little or nothing to do with your goals. With online classes and courses, anyone interested in learning a specific set of skills can find the training that matches their needs. So you can see the obvious benefits of online learning. It's accessible and affordable and closely assigned with what students need. All is not perfect, of course. There are problems inherent in online learning too. It's a very new medium and the technology behind it is evolving all the time. With things changing so fast, it's no surprise that all the kinks haven't been worked out yet. Anyone who's attended so much as a webinar or two has experienced some of the glitches and stumbling blocks that come along with all this great technology. But it isn't the dropped Skype connections or slow videos that hold students back from achieving their goals. The main stumbling block to a successful online education is that many online students already have a full life with a million distractions. They may start the course with enthusiasm and focus, but at the end of the workday, it's very easy to say, "Oh, I'll do that module tomorrow." And the next day, they may put it off again, telling themselves they'll get to it on the weekend. But the weekend comes, and the yard needs mowing, the kids have soccer, the big game is playing. Pretty soon the coursework is piled up, and it's even harder to imagine catching up. And finally, the once excited and hopeful student dreads even logging in and checking for new assignments. The course goes unfinished, and the work grows dusty on virtual CPU shelves. Online classes can feel a bit lonely too. It's just a student and his or her computer. And while that can be great for focus, it can be hard to have no one there for support or input. If things get a bit hard or a bit tedious, being all alone at home can sap motivation and confidence. It's hard to keep your drive going in a vacuum, and it's all too easy to get sucked into hours of Twitter or Facebook. Many people made it through high school or college because they had parents or teachers standing on top of them to do the work well and on time. With online courses, students are accountable only to themselves. Instructors may try to encourage good work and participation, but no one can force an online student to come to class. And many online courses have open-ended deadlines or no deadlines at all. As much as a student may be interested in the material and really need the training and information they've paid for, without deadlines and accountability, it's all too easy for students to do shoddy work. It doesn't matter how good the course is if the student doesn't put in the time and effort. Online, an instructor can't spot a shy student in the back of the class and call their name. So it's easy to fall through the cracks if students are afraid to ask for help. They may feel like they don't know you, and their only contact with you may be from reading your words or hearing your voice. It may not be clear that they can actually ask questions, and in fact, maybe they can't. Unfortunately, many online courses don't allow or encourage students to ask questions or to interact with their instructor. Then there's a question of legitimacy. A traditional degree from an established institution is still considered the gold standard in education, and it can be hard to impress on people that a great education can come in other shapes and sizes. Unfortunately, most of us building courses can't provide official credentials or accreditation. That requires government oversight, and there really isn't a mechanism in place for certifying the kind of training you're likely to provide outside of the traditional school environment. That doesn't mean that what you're offering is any less valuable, but it does mean the certificates we may offer are only as good as the rest of the world knowing who we are. So online courses do have weaknesses. Students might leave work undone and feel that they're isolated and unaccountable to anyone but themselves, or they may be afraid to reach out for help when they need it. And even if that's the case, the education on offer may lack legitimacy and certification. But there are ways around these shortcomings, and we'll discuss those later in the course. Thanks for watching this, and we'll see you in Module 2.